Lifetime Hearing Services, the premier hearing healthcare facility of the PD, is so very pleased to sponsor this next Conversation with Nicole, my good friend. Sit back and enjoy.
About the nonprofit.
So we set up the symbol that Gavin sent out, was supposed to be a heart. It has dual meaning. It's a less than 3 sign. And as I started studying mental health, and especially with suicide, I learned that the majority of suicides are impulsive. Not only are they impulsive, but from the time that someone makes the decision to the time that someone commits the act is typically 20 minutes. Unless there is a gun involved, it is less than 3 minutes. So the heart that Gavin sent out has a dual meaning with being less than 3. So one of the things I want to do with the nonprofit is I want to provide free gun locks. I'm a big pro Second Amendment person, but I want to provide free gun locks with the suicide hotline number on it. So if someone is having that impulse and they go to unlock their gun, that hotline number is there. They have it directly in front of them. I feel like that's extremely important, especially whenever it comes to veterans.
Yes.
Not just teens. I don't think teens are necessarily looking at that, but I think that whenever it comes to veterans, that could save many lives.
Well, it's just the thought of stopping and having a chance to reevaluate where you are.
We pushed a lot with the saying of tomorrow needs you. And a lot of times, whenever you're in that moment, if you can make it to tomorrow, you can get through that. Whether that is just simply going to sleep. Another thing that I think that we lack in this country, and one of the reasons we have trouble with youth that are struggling with mental health, is the lack of emotion, is the best way to put it. I learned to change an emotion whenever I'm having a PTSD moment or feeling emotional. I have to get up, and I used to say I would run till I'm done just to get that emotion out. So we want to create things that can support individual sports, such as skating. Whenever Gavin was struggling, he just hopped out on a skateboard and he would go skating, running, biking, things that the youth can do on their own. And I want to go around to cities promoting that and trying to add these or implement these within the city so the youth have somewhere to go. That is a safe place that they can just get out and get these emotions out. And then we want to address drugs, which is a big problem with the youth. As I was growing up, I experimented with drugs, and it wasn't. I wasn't rolling the dice, so to say. I wasn't worried about things such as fentanyl being put in things. And nowadays, that has become such a tremendous cancer on our culture. Yes. You can't even smoke a joint now without worrying that it's got fentanyl on it, and how, that might be the last time that you do anything. And so it's raising the awareness with kids and letting them know that there's other positive things out there that they can do without having the preaching of just don't do drugs. I tell people I feel like God uses me in spite of me, because I'm never the perfect person to speak up. I don't want to say I take the middle ground, but I know I'm a sinner, and I just try to be a better man tomorrow than I was the day before.
Yeah, but
and
Brandon,
I try to take the same approach.
That makes you relatable. When we're just trying to be so perfect in every way, that's just not realistic,
Right.
So being relatable, other people come to the table and listen to you talk about these things, and they go, yeah, I feel the same way. Gosh, I did some things, and I just, I just want to be able to guide my children, or I just want to be able to do better, but I don't want to be like, I'm not being the best parent. I'm this and that. You're letting them know it's okay. We're really in it together. And there are things that we can do to try to help our children not fall prey or victim to some of these horrible things that can happen in life, but also still be a teenager and know you can get to tomorrow. I think one of my big takeaways listening to you right now is getting to tomorrow, because all of us face days where we just think, can't do it anymore. Our world is
Yeah.
so off the charts sometime. And you're right. Taking a walk, going for a run, getting on your bicycle, and knowing that you can get to tomorrow is huge.
And I was raised by a single mother that wanted to make sure that I was not feminine because she was the only one raising me. So I was pushed towards a lot of masculine things growing up, which I'm grateful for. But at the same time, whenever Gavin passed, I was unaware of what had happened, and it caused a lot of self-reflection. And I look back, prior to this, my wife had only seen me cry 2 times in our 20 years of marriage. In August will be 20 years. And that was the day Gavin was born, because I thought I was going to lose her and him. And then the day that he died. And I have learned, previously I thought that I was less of a man or a weaker man for showing emotions. And what I've learned is that it's the stronger man that can own his emotions and then say, now what? I'm not afraid to cry in public. I'm not afraid to just be myself. One of the things I spoke about at the funeral, Gavin was only here for 17 years. And going to the funeral, I wanted to wear his shoes, which I have been wearing his shoes every time a significant portion has happened with his bill going through the legislature. But, the shoes that I tried to put on, I couldn't fill them. And it just made me feel like I am 43 years old, and I am going to be fighting for the rest of my life, trying to make as big of an impact that my 17-year-old son had, because he owned his emotions. He owned who he was. He was more confident in who he was as a 17-year-old than I am as a 43-year-old. So I try to, whenever I think about, I shouldn't get up there and dance because someone's going to take a picture. I don't care anymore. I'm just me.
Dance.
Yeah, I have no shame anymore, I guess you could say. I wear it, and I wear it with not only that, but I point out my own mistakes to people just to kind of make it easier,
Sure. Well, obviously having your son back would be the ultimate gift, but you took such a tragedy and have turned it into something that can really make a difference in the lives of so many others. And that is so selfless. I mean, you're to be commended for doing that. A lot of people would just want to just fade away and never be seen again. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And I know your wife, she's lovely, she's beautiful inside and out, and together the two of you are pushing through this with your other 2 children to make a difference in the world. And that's to be commended, Brandon, that you want to make a difference despite the tragedy that has happened in your life. And you have to feel that from others around you when you get up there and dance, so to speak.
I don't know. Whenever I looked at it, I can sit there and cry in the corner. I can do nothing, or else I can make a difference. Yeah. And to me, out of those 3 options, there's not but one option. Is it hard? Yes. But I'm not doing it alone. As you said, whenever everything happened, the amount of the community coming together. I don't know how parents can lose a child and go through it without the support of the community like we had. Then to go down to the state house and to have the freshmen rally around me. And then that turned into the entire House rallying around, then the entire Senate rallying around. I'm not fighting this fight alone. The legislators that wear the less than 3 sign, they're going back to their home in their cities, and people ask them, what does that mean? And it opens up the conversation, and they're making parents aware. And that is the point of it. Whenever we set up the less than 3 foundation, our entire purpose is to raise awareness. And the other parents that I'm speaking with, like the Woods up in Ohio or the Schaefers out in Montana that have lost children as well. And those are just 2 of the family. they're doing the same thing. They're fighting. They're trying to make sure that parents realize that this is not a singular incident.
Right.
The hardest thing is for me to get people to realize is that Gavin was not targeted because of me being in politics. They just happened to pick the wrong kid at that time, because I am a fighter. That's the only way I've lived my entire life, and I'm ready to go. But now I'm fighting for kids, and I'm coming after them.
Yeah,
So
well, you
any way
can't
that I
stop
can.
now. You cannot
Yes.
stop now. There's more work to be done. And I know that you're going to do it. Listen, I want to pivot a little bit. As a freshman lawmaker this year, now you move beyond that when you start the next session.
Yeah.
What has been your overall experience as a lawmaker at the State House? Good, the bad, what you'd like to see different, you know, what you enjoyed the most, maybe what you enjoyed the least, what could be done better?
Well,
There's a lot, right?
it is, and I don't want to make it too political at all. But
Sure.
my views were I've always been more of a libertarian type person. My problem is I thought I was going to walk in, and I'm walking into this swampy system of, a bunch of old guys holding up legislation and tit for tat and all of that. I can honestly say I've not seen that. That has not been the case.
That's refreshing.
What I have seen is a lot of the people that I thought that were fighting the hardest, the ones that get the sound bites and the ones that are on social media and you think they're doing right, they're typically the ones holding up the process.
Oh, no.
You may have good things in front of you.
Don't give us names. We don't want names.
I'm not. My first interview, they asked me what I thought, and I said, I see a lot of virtue signaling and not a lot of virtue.
Okay.
And I think that sums it up the best. But I am seeing is, in my bill, everyone came together. There's plenty of other issues that we're not going to agree.
Right.
But the one thing I can say is we can all sit down and listen to one another. We're not as divided, at least in the state of South Carolina. We are not as divided as the rhetoric is across the country. And
That's great to hear.
I think that if more citizens can realize that, instead of listening to the sound bites and following the news media, I guess the best way I can put it is we all need to be on the same plane. And whenever you're on the plane, you don't see anyone sitting on the left wing or the right wing, because that would be stupid.
Yeah, because
We're all on the plane together.
yeah.
So we can have our differences politically,
Sure.
and we can all stand and fight for our constituents, but that doesn't mean that someone else is the enemy. We're all on the same plane.
Right.
And our goal is to keep that plane in the air, right?
Yeah, and for it to land safely.
Yes. The process moves a lot slower than I would like it to move.
I'm sure.
There's plenty of bills that get introduced. I've seen, I think whenever I first got there, was over 500 bills that were pre-filed. So you read through them, but what I would find is I would call legislators that have pre-filed this bill, and they have no clue what it says.
Yeah.
They filed it because someone in their district said this is a problem, so they just had a bill written and filed, knowing that it will never get a subcommittee hearing. But they can go back home and say, oh, well, I fought for you.
Yeah.
But there's not anything being done.
Well, I sort of feel bad for lawmakers in that regard. Good ones are really trying to make the constituents happy, but you can't make everyone happy. They're like, oh, I'm trying to, help you out. But I'm sure
it makes it difficult.
It makes it difficult. And it that sort of thing sort of bogs down the system too, which is what I think I hear you saying a little bit.
Yeah.
Dr. Leslie Kirby, that's me, and Nicole go way back over 30 years. I was just beginning my career as an audiologist, and Nicole was a new news reporter way before she became a beloved news anchor. She has always professionally supported my hearing healthcare practice, and I am so very excited to be her first ever Conversations with Nicole sponsor. That's what we should all do, support one another, and that's just what my Lifetime Hearing team does with all of our patients. We make lives better and easier with communication so that people can love life, enjoy the grandchildren, enjoy church, enjoy TV, and hear the I love yous that mean so much. Offering the best in Belltone hearing aid technology, as well as providing cochlear implant solutions, we have become known as the PD's premier hearing healthcare facility, with having evaluated more than 52,000 ears to date. With national award-winning services, call us for your on-time appointment.
And the pressure, no one has told me how to vote on any issue.
Good.
You get pressure from sides, you get pressure from the people back home that are, hearing a false narrative. I think the frustrating part is the people that support you back home know you and they know your heart.
Sure.
And yet they listen to someone that's not even from the area, give their opinion, don't even talk to you, and then all of a sudden you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
That becomes a frustrating factor to me.
How do you overcome that? How do you overcome that? Because that would be frustrating for me too, I'm sure.
I don't know that you do overcome it.
Pray and take a walk.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say it's one of my faults. I can be very confrontational, and a lot of times I'm confrontational with people that I agree with.
Sure.
And some people, their personalities don't mesh well whenever I'm like that. So I'm trying to work on how to communicate better without being confrontational with these people. But sometimes I just want to grab them and say, hey, you know me. Do you really think that I would support this or do this? And the hard thing is whenever you know that a bill has made it through subcommittee and committee, and then it comes to the floor, and there is a great amendment that someone offered. It sounds great. But the problem is they never took it to subcommittee during the hearing. They never took it to committee, and they just proposed it on the floor so they can get their soundbite and to say that everyone that doesn't vote for it is the enemy. And that becomes the problem. So whenever it comes to amendments, I tend to, I'm on judiciary, which is rare for a freshman, first of all, but to have 60% of all the bills go through my committee, I can't keep up what's going on in medical and, military, municipalities. I can't, and education. I'm not the expert on that. I think the York County delegation, we do really well, regardless of how people want to say, this person's more this way or that way. I think we do really well on understanding that certain people have, like if this in regards to education, I'm speaking to Ray Felder. Ray Felder sits on education. She knows that inside and out. I'm going to listen to more of her, and I know her heart, and I know what she's trying to accomplish. We're not always going to vote on everything together, but if it's something in regards to education and she spent so much time on it, I'd be a fool not to listen.
Well, it just goes back to listening and being open to people that have more insight about different topics, and not just saying, well, I don't agree the way you agree, and so I'm just not going to do whatever,
Right.
Open to it. I would think more gets done that way. So that seems pretty smart in my opinion.
I have trouble with party politics because of the rhetoric from both sides. It's either you're with me 100% or you're against me. And I'm a big believer in if I agreed with you 100%, I don't need to do my job.
Right.
I mean, I don't agree with anyone 100%. Ask my wife. She's lucky if we get 50%.
Do any of us agree? I mean, yes, and we won't go into the party lines and all that, but I get what you're saying. I'd like to wrap this up with you talking about Gavin's Law again. It is now a law, and how in your freshman year it brought both chambers together, had the backing from both parties, both aisles. So as we wrap this up, final thoughts on Gavin's Law and what's next for you?
I think Gavin's Law should be, the way that we handled it should be the way that we approach the majority. You have the big issues, which I consider the forest. The individual issues are the trees. The trees should be addressed the way Gavin's Law was. We started off with the freshman caucus, which was very diverse. We had members of the Legislative Black Caucus, we have members of the Democratic Caucus, the Republican Caucus, and the Freedom Caucus, and we're all coming together on how we can make it work. And as we started going through the process, it was really, it's not a, people might say it's a compromise. I don't believe that. I believe it's truly understanding that we all have the same goal. How do we get there? And how can we make this work? And I think that more laws need to be approached that way. I get a lot of accolades or credit for doing this, and I can tell you, there's no freshman legislator that can come in and just get something done. It's not about me. This was about us coming together, and it started with the freshman legislators, and then it went to the House. But it took all of us. This was not a single man's mission. So it is important for us to work together and to have these conversations. And
I love that.
It's allowed me to have a different view. And I believe that my views don't always line up with other people, but I cannot ever see where you are coming from unless I can have the conversation with you. And being able to listen and understand and say, okay, what is our ultimate goal here? You know, doesn't matter what the situation is. Look at the ultimate goal. I've got one path, you've got another path. Okay, how about if we combined our paths and we reach the destination?
Yeah, and that should be the future of all issues and bills that come up, you know, in the state house. So, if Gavin could talk to you right now, what do you think he would say to you about his law?
I think that he would think that it's very cool that he has a law named after him. You know, I would like to say that Gavin would be proud that we took the tragedy. But I think most of all, I think that he would want to say that he made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if he could have just made it to tomorrow and had someone advocating to share that message, that perhaps we wouldn't be having to do this. But sometimes God gives you a Goliath to bring out the David in you. And perhaps that's the situation that we're in, and trying to get that word out and to fight. I just wish I didn't have to experience the tragedy. But sometimes things, you know, everything happens for a reason. And that's very difficult. Me as a Christian, it's hard not to be angry at God at times with everything that's happened, or to be angry at Gavin. Whenever I'm talking to Gavin, sometimes I get mad at him because I tell him I know that he was saved. And now that angers me because I don't have a choice but to be a Christian if I ever want to see him again.
That's right, because he's watching you right now. He's looking down and he's going, Dad, you're doing a great job.
And a lot of the little things that I do it to gain his confidence that he had in aspects, wearing his shoes that have all these things drawn on them. If you ever listen to them call my name whenever I'm coming up to speak at the State House, they say Brandon Spider Guffey. And it's because of the Spider-Man stuff that Gavin had. You know, I'll wear Spider-Man socks, or I'll wear his What Would Jesus Do bracelet, or his tennis shoes that have all the drawings on them. Just trying to live in the moment. And it's very impactful, especially having a university around there with us to kind of open up those conversations. And I think Gavin would be more proud about that. But it's not about this law as much as, you know, it's great to honor Gavin. It's not about that, because I feel like I lost the battle with my son. This is about ensuring that no other family has to go through this. And that's what I'm fighting for.
Thank you. Thank you for fighting for those that are going through this and may go through this and making a difference. I've told you this before. I think you're an extraordinary person. I think you're a very special human being. You have a heart like no other. And I believe that God has put you in the position that you're in to continue to make a difference, to be able to change lives, to be able to save lives, and to keep fighting the good fight in the position that you're in with your outlook. I think even more laws that will make a difference and will help children, especially children like Gavin, will come forward in the future. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much. It'd been nice for God to pick somebody with a few less mistakes, but
Hey, that's
yeah.
how he uses us. That's how he uses us. Yes. Well, Brennan, I want to thank you for being my guest today. It's been, like I said, an honor to speak with you and to be able to share your story. I'm very grateful, and I look forward to watching you now and in years to come as to the ways that you make our life in South Carolina better, and the ways that you'll be making our lives better really across the country, because no doubt the movement that you've started in South Carolina is moving throughout this country. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Nicole. You have a wonderful day.
You too. And that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.
This segment of Conversations by Nicole is sponsored by Lifetime Hearing Services, with 3 locations in Florence, Hartsville, and Camden. Visit us on Facebook and at lifetimehearingservices.com. Until next time, be well, stay grateful, and be blessed.